AI can now build a working web scraper from a single sentence. At least that's the promise, so why not put that to the test with Claude Code? I'm Arnas from Oxylabs, and in this video we'll go from a plain English prompt to clean, structured data, see where this vibe coding approach genuinely holds up, and where it quietly falls apart. Claude Code is a hugely popular Anthropic's AI coding agent that runs in your terminal. It can read a project, write code, run commands, and even fix its own mistakes. A perfect combo for a vibe coding session. Of course, some may ask, what is that even about? And let me assure you, vibe coding just means you describe what you want in plain language and let the model do most of the typing. For web scraping, that usually means coming up with the request logic, parsing the data, maybe introducing some browser automation, and structuring the output. And all of that without you writing a single line of code by hand. One honest note before we start. Claude Code is indeed great at building you a skeleton, but it does not remove the need to understand the page you're scraping. You still have to know how a site is structured, and you still have to debug. So let's find exactly where that line is. Fortunately, starting off is quite easy, and the setup is surprisingly minimal. Claude Code installs as a single command. If you don't have it yet, use this command on screen. Then, simply use Claude version command to confirm it's working and initiate your agent with a name call in your terminal. I'm doing everything inside VS Code's integrated terminal, so the code and the conversation sit side by side. I already have an empty project folder open right here. Before prompting anything, let's take a look at the target we're planning to scrape. For this example, I'll use the Oxylabs Scraping Sandbox, a practice e-commerce site built for exactly this. The products section is essentially a catalog. Each item has a name, a price, and a rating spread across several pages. As we open DevTools, you can see every product sits in a repeating card with recognizable class names. That kind of structure is something a simple scraper handles well. Now, the actual vibe coding. I'll give Claude Code one prompt. Scrape every product from this sandbox, title, price, and rating across all pages and save the result as JSON. No code from me, just a request. As you can see, it writes a scraper using requests and beautiful soup, explains what it built, and handles the pagination on its own. Let's run it. And just like that, it pulls 3,000 products with the titles and prices coming straight from the HTML. However, the scores aren't there. So Claude Code noticed the page is a Next.js app and pulled the meta and user scores from the embedded Next.data.js ON instead. So it seems that everything lands in products.json, and for a simple static site, vibe coding genuinely works. Additionally, since this whole project is essentially a conversation, I can keep refining in the same session. I'll ask it to also capture each product's page URL, and it edits the existing script instead of starting over, then reruns it. Every one of the 3,000 products now has a URL. While unfortunately, it's a Metacritic one rather than from our target, but from here on out, it's the same idea. Ask, and it adjusts. That being said, the sandbox was the easy case. Point the same workflow at a site that doesn't hand over its data so easily, and things change fast. Here's a quote site that builds its content with JavaScript. I asked Claude Code for a plain requests and beautiful soup scraper, and it's upfront about the problem. The page renders its quotes with JavaScript, so a plain request only gets the static shell. It runs anyway, but finds nothing. As I open the page source, and you can see why. The quotes aren't in the HTML at all. They're sitting in a JavaScript array the browser renders later, so typical CSS selectors can't grab what isn't there yet. Of course, none of that is an AI failure. It's just how a lot of the modern web works. This is exactly where infrastructure starts to matter. Claude Code can connect to external tools through MCP, the Model Context Protocol. In this case, we could check out Oxylabs' MCP server for its web scraper API. In practice, that lets Claude Code hand off the hard part, such as rendering, rotating IPs, getting past anti-bot systems, to a service built for it, instead of writing fragile code itself. Connecting it is just one command, which you can see on screen right now. I add the Oxylabs server with my web scraper API credentials as environmental variables, start a session, and Claude Code reports the Oxylabs tools are connected and ready. Now the same quote site, but this time Claude Code routes the request through the Oxylabs web scraper API. It calls the Oxylabs tool, the page is fully rendered, and all 10 quotes come back in a clean table. Keep in mind, this is the same exact data a plain request couldn't see just a minute ago. And here, Claude Code spells out the difference. The API set rendering to HTML, spun up a headless browser, ran the page's JavaScript, and handed back the finished DOM. There's also the second piece worth knowing about. Oxylabs agent skills could help your agent write even better. In agenting coding like this, a skill is an instruction file that teaches Claude Code how to use a specific tool properly. So it always writes correct code for instead of guessing parameters. With the skill added, I pointed at a product on Amazon, a far harder target than a quote sandbox. Claude Code uses the skill, calls the web scraper API, and returns a clean structured record: title, price, rating, review count. The skill is what makes that reliable, rather than hit or miss. And finally, the last step is the output formats. This is an easy one, as you just simply ask for the format you want. Back with the quotes data, I have Claude Code save it as a CSV. One row per quote with the text and author. It writes everything in the results.csv file, ready to open in any spreadsheet or feed into a data pipeline. So where does this land? Claude Code is genuinely useful for scraping, especially for fast prototyping, generating skeleton code, debugging selectors, learning how a site is put together, and iterating quickly without rewriting everything by hand. What it doesn't do is remove the hard parts of production scraping: page rendering, anti-bot bypassing, rotating proxies, and scaling. For that, you still need real infrastructure, whether that's the Oxylabs web scraper API through MCP or your own engineering pedigree. So all in all, vibe coding is a great accelerator for any scraping-related project, though not exactly a cheat code for understanding what you're scraping. At least, not yet. In this video, we took Claude Code from a single prompt to working structured data, and saw exactly where AI-assisted scraping stops and real infrastructure begins. If you want to go further, try the work for yourself and check the links below for the Oxylabs MCP documentation, or grab a web scraper API trial to test it out completely free. If you like this video, hit that like button and make sure to check out our channel for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.